5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Shaz. Let's do it. You're not going to come out in the video, Chaz. Sorry.
One of you guys are too close together.
Oh, well, there's just... Oh, you mean the microphones?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any feedback?
No, but there's... I can hear, like, you are talking to the microphone. And it
Oh,
sounds
what?
weird.
I could figure it out.
You know what? I could
But then
just...
you're out of
I could talk in this direction, Shaz. Look. Oh, I
could
talk like that.
this.
the...
I could talk like that.
How you gonna look at it?
How's that? Is that a little better?
That is better. But
All
how
I
you
right.
feel
look
like
at
you're
it?
ignoring me, but alright.
Yeah.
I'll just look at you through here, Starla, just like they do in the news channels.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? They talk to each other like that on the monitor.
I gotcha.
All right? Hold up. Let me get on the right page here. Because you know me, I need my script. Who changed the script? All right. Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. All right, I'm ready, Chaz. I'm ready. I'm ready, Shaz.
Where's Starla?
I'm here. Check. Check.
Aloha, Hawaii. Buenas tardes, Hawaii. Welcome back to In Case You Missed It. Bienvenidos una vez más a Si Acaso Te Lo Perdiste. You're listening to Hawaii's only Spanish-English bilingual broadcast. Usted está escuchando el único programa bilingüe en inglés y español en Hawaii. This is Pastor Dan Gonzalez of Ohana Life Church, along with our technical director, Chaz Ontai. Soy Pastor Daniel Gonzalez de Iglesia Ohana Vida, junto con director técnico Chaz Ontai. Spanish speakers are the fastest growing demographic in Hawaii, and Salem Media and I are happy to meet the spiritual needs of this ever-growing population. Latinos son el grupo que está creciendo más rápido en Hawaii y todos en Salem Media están contentos de suplir las necesidades espirituales de este pueblo creciente. English speakers are the largest demographic in Hawaii, and I am happy to bring you the Word of God today, just in case you missed it at your local church today for whatever reason. Hay más gente que habla inglés que cualquier otro idioma en Hawaii, y también estoy contento de traerles a los que hablan inglés la palabra de Dios en esta tarde, por si acaso te lo perdiste en tu iglesia local hoy. The title of today's message is Restoration. El mensaje de hoy lleva por título Restauración. Before I get into the message today, I just want to thank the Lord that today, June 26, 2016, Ohana Life Church is celebrating our second anniversary in Hawaii. Antes de comenzar nuestro mensaje de hoy, solamente quiero darle gracias al Señor que hoy, 26 de junio 2016, Iglesia Ohana Vida, estamos celebrando nuestro segundo aniversario en Hawaii. I also would like to thank Alejandro's Mexican Food in Kalihi for sponsoring today's message. También me gustaría darle gracias a Alejandro's Mexican Food en Kalihi por patrocinar nuestro mensaje de hoy. Alejandro's Mexican Food is located at 2831 Kalihi Street, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96819. Alejandro's Mexican Food está localizado en 2831 Kalihi Street, Honolulu, Hawaii. You can also find them online at multilatinfoods.com. También los puede encontrar online en multilatinfoods.com. And you can also contact them and order your food over the phone at 808-777-0038. También puede llamar a Alejandro's Mexican Food por teléfono para poner una orden 808-777-0038. Alejandro is a great guy. I met him during our revival. Alejandro es una persona muy buena. Lo conocí durante nuestro avivamiento. And his mother happened to be one of our listeners. Su madre es una de nuestras oyentes. And as we were speaking, he said, well, what if I just sponsor the program? I was like, what? Y cuando estábamos platicando, él decía, ¿y qué si yo patronizo el programa? Y dije, oh, pues claro que sí. And so, just because we was having a Holy Ghost revival, Alejandro decided to sponsor Ohana Life Church in case you missed it. Y nada más porque estamos haciendo un avivamiento, Alejandro decidió que él quería patrocinar a Ohana Life Church o Iglesia Ohana Vida. Si acaso te lo perdiste, y le damos muchas gracias a Alejandro's Mexican Food en Kalihi Uka. And we're also very grateful to Alejandro's Mexican Food in Kalihi Uka. Go by and get some awesome Mexican food. Vaya y compra una comida muy auténtica mexicana que le va a gustar mucho. Well, as you have been listening, como ustedes han estado escuchando, I have my special guest from Embracing Hope Ministry in Colorado, Sister StarlaJMontoya. Como ustedes han estado escuchando, oyendo, tengo conmigo nuestra visita de Abrazar Esperanza, el Ministerio Abrazar Esperanza de Colorado. Nuestra visita hermana StarlaJMontoya está con nosotros. We've been talking about some pretty heavy stuff. Hemos estado hablando de cosas muy pesadas, unos temas profundas, some deep themes. And we're going to continue in that direction. Vamos a seguir en esa dirección. We're talking about something that needs to be talked about. Estamos hablando de algo que se tiene que hablar. We are talking about childhood trauma. Estamos hablando de la trauma de la niñez and how it affects our lives into adulthood, cómo afecta nuestra vida hasta ser adultos. But we're not just talking about the symptoms. No solamente estamos hablando de las síntomas. We're also talking about redemption. También estamos hablando acerca de la redención. We're talking about healing. Estamos hablando acerca de la sanidad. Healing from childhood trauma. Sanando de la trauma de la niñez. And so we are so happy to have Sister Starla with us today. Good morning, Sister Starla.
Good morning, Hawaii. I could get used to this, Pastor Dan. This is week 3, and it feels comfortable. It feels like maybe I should relocate, but don't tell my family that.
Too late, you already said it on the radio.
Uh-oh.
Starla dice que ya se siente tan cómoda que piensa que tiene que relocalizar o mudarse aquí. Pues yo pienso que es buena idea. What do you think, Brother Chaz? Good idea? He's nodding his head up and down. All right. I don't think he's allowed to speak on this program. I think you're only allowed to hear him say stuff on the news. Muy bien. Adelante con nuestro programa. Very well. We're going to move on with our program. Sister Starla, last week you talked about how, how you had to deal with that childhood trauma, very briefly, but we did not talk a whole lot about your story of how that childhood trauma affected your adult life. La semana pasada hablamos un poquito acerca de cómo esa trauma te afectó y cómo pudiste salir, tratar, ¿verdad?, con ese trauma, pero no platicamos acerca de tu historia, cómo te afectó como adulta. We didn't talk about how it affected your adult life. And so I'd like you to share that story with us today and give us some, tell us whatever you want, knowing that you are healed today, but we want people to know what you went through as an adult.
As an adult.
Well, teenager, adult, etc. You know what I'm talking about. Grown-up person.
The overall thing that comes to mind is that I felt very robbed of what life could have been and should have perhaps been because of these circumstances that occurred in my life. Who can define what's normal? But I know what's not normal. Mm-hmm. And I never felt that I fit that normalcy in any regard, in any sense, because I was always on the outside looking in. Mm-hmm. We did touch last week on the experiences with drug addiction, alcohol dependency. But one of the main areas that was affected would be the area of my sexuality.
So this childhood trauma that you experienced affected your sexual identity.
Right.
So we want to dedicate today's broadcast to all of our LGBTQ listeners and all of those who have family or friends that are part of the LGBTQ community. Esta tarde queremos dedicar este mensaje a todos los que nos escuchan que son de la comunidad LGBTQ y cada uno que tiene familia que es parte de esa comunidad.
So the greatest, I guess, struggle, issue, whatever you want to label it, would be in that area of my life. I guess as a little girl, you know, the scenario in your mind is one day to marry the prince and, you know, be the Disney princess. That, however, was never something that was in my mind. Ever, as far as back as I can remember, even playing house as a young girl, I took on the role of being the boyfriend or the son. So the neighborhood girls would be the girlfriend, you know, when we'd play house or whatever. So it goes all the way back to a young age, again 5 or 6, and that just evolved over the years. And I think it was probably about junior or senior year of high school when little by little I began to accept that I was a lesbian and embrace that label even. So one by one, you know, with friends at school, I would come out to. The first reaction, the almost constant reaction was, well, what took you so long to let us know? We already knew, you know. I looked like a girl. I acted, you know, like a girl. But little by little, again, that began to transition to a masculine demeanor. I never cut my hair, never chopped it off. But as far as my attire, you could look at me and there was no second guessing my lifestyle. It was very evident. And years later, now that I'm in a different place, now that my mind has been renewed, now that my heart is anew, now that I'm a new creature, I'm able to look back and process things as they were not, as they perhaps should have been. And I do feel that I was robbed in that sense, because sexuality and identity is given by God. And when the enemy comes in through whatever means to taint that, through whatever means necessary, through whatever crack he get in through, I've learned that it's not my fault, but the repercussions and the consequences are real and existent.
Yeah. So when you say the repercussions, consequences are real and existent, how were they real and existent in your life?
Again, looking back now, you know, even just a few years ago and processing everything, I didn't know it at the time, but because of the actions of a few men and their mistakes, every man in my life had to pay. The man, there's a guy right here, he would have to pay for what these other men did. And I don't even know this guy. It was a deep-rooted resentment and an anger that just choked everything about me. And we are not created to have that animosity or that resentment or bitterness or that hurt. That's not, you know, that was never in God's original plan for us. We do live in a fallen and an imperfect world where situations beyond our control produce these results. But I made sure that I kept men at a distance, even without maybe realizing it while it was happening.
It was something just almost to the point where it was subconscious, where you kept men away from you. And so would you say that the way you dressed, the way you acted, your demeanor, would you say, looking back today, that was one of the things that you did in order to keep men away from you?
I had never really looked at it that way, but maybe subconsciously that was my camouflage to retract men. I never really thought about it in that sense. I do know that that was comfortable to me, that felt natural to me for whatever reason.
Safe.
Yeah, yeah, I felt maybe a bit more confident in taking on this role of who I thought I wanted to be or who I was supposed to be.
And speaking of taking on that role, I know that some of our listeners might be thinking, oh, well, she had a childhood trauma. She probably experimented a little bit here and there in, her sexuality. But in reality, you had quite a lengthy ongoing a lesbian relationship, didn't you?
Yeah, for several years, again, 6 or 7 years, give or take, I was in a committed relationship. I would have married this woman, if permissible, if there hadn't been factors that cause problems in the relationship. Yeah, I would have went through with it. I was a lot younger, of course, but I knew then what I wanted, and I was willing to lose everything else. My family, I'm very attached to them now. The reason for that is because for several years that I was away, they were not a priority. I was telling your wife, Sister Norma, that I think my nephew played varsity football for 2 or 3 years, and I never went to one game.
Wow.
Because I was either still drunk from the night before, barely waking up, or still partying. So family was not something that I concerned myself with. Obviously, my ministry that has evolved was not something I was thinking about.
Obviously,
at that time. So my priority became this woman, and in that relationship, I've learned now that it was a broken love that I was settling for, but at the time that was enough, or I was convinced that it was enough.
Okay. And so during this time, you said that you were out partying, getting drunk, and some of my friends have also told me, some of my gay friends have also told me that there is quite a bit of alcohol abuse in the LGBTQ community. Did you notice any of that?
Yeah. I mean, every outing, every festivity included substance abuse in whatever form. I don't think that's isolated just to the homosexual community, because if you look at spring break, it's all about partying.
Sure.
It's not just confined, but I do think in the gay community, I had a lot of issues being confident. It's kind of an oxymoron. I was confident, but because in the back of my mind I knew God and I knew the things of God, I was never 100% okay with what I was doing. So to numb that reality, to make it seem a little bit better than it was, a little more tolerable, drugs and alcohol played a big part in that.
Now, you also mentioned, because we're talking about a lengthy relationship, a long relationship that's actually longer than most heterosexual relationships. I remember you did mention to me one time when we were talking about how you felt that you knew how to love a woman. Could you go into a little more detail about that?
Right. So because I knew firsthand how not to treat a woman, or then a young girl, it was almost as if it pushed a button that activated some hidden knowledge within me of how to treat a woman properly, with respect and with love and on a pedestal. And, I can elaborate with all these words. And I wanted to be that person to provide that to another woman, because I knew the opposite spectrum of that, being the victim, being the person who never had that. And I don't mean never from my family or anything like that. I mean never from a man in an improper way. Right.
And so then when we're talking about lesbian love or gay love or the LGBTQ type of love, it sounds to me almost like if it is a perversion of the right idea. In other words, every man ought to know how to treat a woman, but he doesn't. And every woman ought to know how to treat a man, but she doesn't. and this fall, this failure to be able to do that, all started in the Garden of Eden. I mean, people. I think it's funny how I do. I really think it's funny or ironic, whatever word you want to use, that people, many Christians act as if homosexuality is something that started yesterday, something that we began to accept in the 21st century. Most Christians don't know that you find an entire community of LGBTQ in the book of Genesis. And it's not at the end of Genesis. It's near the beginning of the book of Genesis or somewhere around the middle where you find this community of LGBTQ there. And so because you experienced this loving relationship with another woman, how would you describe the perversion of actually almost a wholesome thought, like I want to give love? How would you describe the perversion of that thought?
That I didn't have an understanding of until even just a few years ago. When, like I mentioned before, I don't know, a week or two ago, I'm still in a healing process. I'm still on an ongoing restoration process. I look back and I'm not who I was, but yet you always hear the cliche quote, but I'm not who I'm yet to be, so this is ongoing in my life, and the further along I progress, the deeper God goes with this healing, and repeat your question, Pastor.
So the question is, how would you describe this? I use the word perversion, and I just want to make clear that it's for lack of a better word, because I'm a preacher and I'm trying to find synonyms in my head and I just can't. So, but when I use the word perversion, I mean more like a warped view, a kind of like a misunderstanding of what's actually a good thing, which is how to love a woman or how to love a man, how to love yourself.
I think because of the trauma that I had experienced and the repercussion being so strong, even knowing that it perhaps was not the greatest love of all, it was enough, because I was that desperate for that connection and that feeling of worth. And years later, again, to present time, just a few years ago, that's an area in my life that is a completely different level of where God is bringing a different form of healing into my life. Because when these men acted out and tainted my being, the repercussions of that, they robbed my self-worth. They robbed that value from me. They robbed me being able to feel beautiful. Even just up until a few years ago, people would say, Starla, you're beautiful, Starla, blah, blah, blah. And it would almost anger me, because I didn't see the things that they seen in me. Because for so many years, it was as though I was in a room of darkness, and the light is being turned on now, and it's blinding. And it's hard to change my view on something that has always existed in my life and in my being, but I never was able to see it before. So broken love then was enough because of the desperation of needing to feel of worth.
I like that word better, broken love. Broken love, not perverted love, but broken love. And so thank you so much for sharing today, Sister Starla. Wow, so beautiful. My gosh, I'm just overwhelmed by just what you shared today. Just blows me away how just to see you today, and I don't see a broken person. I see a whole, complete person. I see a perfect work of God. And I'm so happy. Next week, brothers and sisters, la semana que entra, hermanos y hermanas, and friends, amigos, we will be speaking about how Sister Starla's family or parents played a huge role in her transformation or her reconciliation. Quiero decirles que la semana que entra vamos a hablar acerca de cómo los padres de hermana Starla hicieron un papel muy grande, tuvieron un papel muy grande en su reconciliación con el Señor. Así que espero que nos van a escuchar la semana que entra otra vez. I hope you tune in again next week. And now one more song from Sister Starla's album, Since Then.
and failures, mistakes that have no end, only shattered pieces of my life. I turned my back on you, Lord, and now I realize I need more than ever. From this I cannot hide. Take me in your hands, wash me white in the snow. Oh, how I need you. So many wasted days and years that passed me by, and I could still hear you calling. You reached out for my hand, and I pushed you away. Yet I could still hear you calling.
So we want to come back. I can like pot it down. You can talk over it and say goodbye, and then you can announce that. And then I'll end it with this, you know.
Okay.
I'll just fade out her song
All right.
at the end. So we're at, you got about a minute and a half.
Okay.
To go down.
Thank you for tuning in to In Case You Missed It today. Gracias por escucharnos en si acaso te lo perdiste este día. If you want to learn more about Sister Starla's ministry, you may find at StarlaJMontoya.com. Una vez más, si quieren aprender más acerca del ministerio de hermana Starla, pueden aprender más de ella en StarlaJMontoya.com, and you can also find her music on iTunes. God bless you, Hawaii. Dios los bendiga, Hawaii. I love you. Woo! I feel the Holy Ghost, Brother Chaz.
Good.
That was
Very good.
beautiful, yeah? It
Very
just
good,
took us
very good.
3 sessions to get it together, Starla. But we finally got it together.
Three seconds.
Well, all the others were good, but this one was great, you know?